Hello, YouTube and Patreon. This is Nathan P. Butler, and this is our project update for the month of August 2022. You may notice it looks a little bit different here. I'll explain that here in just a moment. A new device that's being used right now, and we will touch on that in a moment. It has not been a particularly productive month, I will say, because it's the beginning of a new school year. So we have just finished up summer session, I think, as of the time that I recorded the last of the project updates, and then beginning of August, we hit the ground running. We had a week of pre-planning, which included some meetings away from home and some stuff online. And then we had the first week of school, second week of school. So at this point, we're about to head into the third week. I have a little over 200 students. It's tending to kind of go back and forth. My max, I think, right now is 220. But it's sort of been going back and forth between like upper 200 teens down to almost exactly 200 as students, let us know that, hey, I signed up for this class, but I actually don't need to take it anymore, but nobody has let anybody know, so let's get the schedule changed, all that kind of stuff. So I imagine I'll probably land somewhere kind of like it usually has been, somewhere between about 205 and 215. But that means a lot of reaching out and doing stuff early to make sure everybody has what they need. So it has been a busy, I don't want to say crazy, busy couple of weeks. Lots of phone calls for meeting the teacher. Basically, that's what they call meet the teacher calls. Reaching out to parents and stuff like that. I have basically lost my voice or very close to lost my voice twice in the last 2 weeks already from doing so. And I still would say that I'm only about halfway done. So got a long way to go with the meet the teacher calls and stuff like that. But it just means that it's been a busy couple of weeks. So when I have had a chance to really do anything for me, it's been sort of off to the side with my son in the room, which basically meant mostly solo board game type stuff rather than getting a chance to record anything or edit much of anything. So we've had a few new items that have come out since the last update, but not a ton, as we expected last time around. So first, before we get into what has been released through Patreon, let's take a moment to thank all of you who are backers over on Patreon. We have the Travelers to the Butlerverse tier. That is the $1 tier, the folks who get the name in the credits of these episodes and get a shout out here at the beginning. And that includes David Bittner, John Sullivan, Kai Jacoby, Story Mode, Travis Cook, Justin Richard, Jeremy Goss, Ben Abrams, Michael Torson, Jacob Kapoor, Tony Jenkins, Kevin Kreener, and Austin Pierce. Then, of course, we have the denizens of the Butlerverse, who are the folks who get access to those 2 audio commentaries at least per month. Still going through the Clone Wars at this point. Eventually, Star Wars Visions will enter the mix as well, at least for Season 1. More on that, I guess, in a moment here. But the denizens of the Butlerverse, that $5 tier, include Jeff Rabjohns, Matt DeRocher, Walker Langstrat, Kyle Pellegrini, Joey Zitzman, Stephen Malicia, Robert Medina, Bobby Craig, Jeremiah Mustard, and Jaina Keller. Then, of course, finally, we have the nobility of the Butlerverse. These are the folks with that $10 tier who get what everybody else gets, but also gets that exclusive Q&A video every single month. Those include Connor Steierman, Matthew Hardesty, Innes, Jonathan Confer, Sam Howard, Andrew Bettis, Aaron Melzak, and Benjamin Handelman. Again, that is that $10 tier if you're curious about getting in on one of those Q&As. Speaking of which, through Patreon, we had 3 new releases, as is usually the case, not counting a project update, because that also gets released over here. So we did have the newest of the Nobility of the Butlerverse exclusive Q&A episodes. It was number 56, released on August 6th. And then we also, of course, had our 2 audio commentaries released for the month of August on the 1st and the 15th. Those are for the episodes of the Clone Wars The Disappeared Part 2, finishing up the Jar Jar arc of Season 6, and then The Lost One, actually beginning the last arc of Season 6. Again, if you're not familiar with what those are, I know I've said it before, but basically you take those, you download them, and when you're watching the episode of the Clone Wars, you pause it right after the Clone Wars logo fades from the screen, leaving a blank space where the episode's fortune cookie phrase is about to appear. I will count down from 3, and I'll say play when the countdown hits 0. Hit play at that moment, and you should be able to watch right along with me. I've said that a lot, and I usually do flub it in the middle like I just did. Basically, though, it's an MP3 file that you can listen to alongside watching episodes of the Clone Wars to hear my live running commentary throughout. They have been being released and recorded since 2017, so probably be interesting to listen to all of them now, because it is sort of that development of how Star Wars and my perspective on it has changed perhaps over time. At the time that the recording started, there was no Bad Batch TV show, for example. So kind of an interesting way of looking at it now, just looking back. For what it's worth, I still have not made a decision, by the way, on what will happen to the Q&A videos or to the commentaries if and when, probably when, the Patreon ends. Because I will probably be wrapping up the Patreon at some point after the Clone Wars commentaries and the commentaries for Visions come out. It may be something where I basically say, hey, if you want to get in on it, get your $5 in or whatever, download all of them now because they will be going away. I really am not sure about archiving them somewhere else, especially since they are somewhat a product of the time in which they were being released. So we'll just see. I am more coming to terms with the idea that this is something really for those who have supported over time rather than something to necessarily keep available after that. Because looking back, most of my stuff at this point, because they were products of their time and whatnot, have not been made available in years. So if someone, for instance, were to try to go and, I don't know, listen to old episodes of Chrono Radio, they'd have to find them, as opposed to it just being normally available through a website that I ran like I used to. So just kind of one of those things. If you want to get in on that, I would suggest getting in on it sometime soon. But you got all the way through until at least the end of April of 2023, because I'll still have commentaries coming out all the way through at least then for Clone Wars, and Visions kind of interweaving with it is the plan. Speaking of which, though, looking ahead, September 1st, we will see the commentary for the episode Voices. On the 15th, Destiny. October 1st, Sacrifice. October 15th, Gone with a Trace, kicking off Season 7, the last season. November 1st, Deal No Deal. November 15th, Dangerous Debt. December 1st, Together Again. December 15th, The Bad Batch. And January 1st, A Distant Echo. That is as far as I have recorded and edited so far. So basically, I only have 6 episodes of the Clone Wars left to record commentaries for. I don't think I've recorded any since the last of these project updates, so this is probably a project update in which the update on what's coming, as far as the work I still have left, is pretty much the same as what you saw before. Of course, the bulk of my stuff usually is released over on YouTube, and there's only really been 4 things since the last of these project updates. It's 4 episodes from the Star Wars Home Video Library, episodes 455, 456, 457, and 458. The first of those was on a box of the 2005 A&E VHS screeners, which includes Empire of Dreams. I'd shown you the cassette before, but now I was able to show you the full collection. Episode 456 was on the clamshell case individual releases, for the widescreen releases at least, of the original trilogy from 1997 over in the UK. And then we had episode 457, which was a beta copy of Ewoks The Battle for Endor from Japan. And then 458 was the French CCAM widescreen dubbed VHS release of Revenge of the Sith. I think I said French already, but from France, if I didn't happen to say French in that long string of adjectives there. But that was basically it. As I said, it's just been a crazy, crazy month in terms of just the sheer amount of stuff needing to be done otherwise. A lot of times, if I could slip away, I might try to get something done like on a Saturday or something like that, kind of depending on what my wife is doing. But a lot of my time that I would use for preparing for that sort of thing has been taken up just by school-related stuff. Like, if I'm going to focus on the Meet the Teacher calls and grading stuff and checking in with students during the day, on the weekdays, usually my time to, for example, check for IEP or 504 accommodations, like students who get extra time on assessments and stuff like that, to set that up, I'll set that aside for like a Saturday. Just because I know that I'm going to have the time to do it with no other interruptions. I can just do it very efficiently, and I'm cool with that. You know, I feel like a lot of times when I get to a point of stress on like, oh, there's so many Meet the Teacher calls to do, for example, 200 plus times to do that here in the first month or so, I have to stop and think, you know, I am extremely blessed to be in the position that I am, to be able to teach online full time, to be able to do it for decent pay, to be able to do it with the ability to get extra pay by taking on extra students that helps here, to be able, most importantly, to be working primarily from home so that I can be with my son every day. I can handle the little bursts of, wow, this is stressful extra work here. Because A, this too shall pass, and B, it is a small price to pay for the great situation that we're in. So I won't knock it. It just means that sometimes I'm not as productive with the stuff for me as I otherwise might be. Speaking of productive and production, though, you may be noticing here, as I mentioned earlier, it may look a little different. One, it's daytime again, because my son has finally stopped flipping out when I leave the room. But this is actually on a different device. For years, I've been recording on an iPad 5th generation. I got it a few years ago. It worked very, very well. And over time, what has happened is we've gotten our son into educational apps and stuff like that, particularly ABC Mouse and so forth. And he's got some old devices of ours, but they were just like old devices that barely held any charge left. So he could use like an old iPad or a couple of old iPhones, and they die fairly quickly, but it gives him a chance to do some educational stuff, but then it's dead. It's just not a consistent way to keep him able to follow and focus on those lessons in ABC Mouse or things like that. He's also a little speech delayed because he needed to have tubes in his ears when he was about 1 year old, and so he didn't hear very well for that first year of picking up auditory cues. So there's also an app that can let kids sort of communicate better as they're learning to communicate verbally, just build sentences and stuff like that. But in order to make best use of that, what we decided to do was take at least some of my summer school pay, after taking care of a whole new transmission for my wife's car, was to get me a new iPad. Get me a new iPad Air 5th Gen, which is the newest version, I guess, of the iPad Air, and take my one that I'd been recording on for years that was still in really good shape and held its charge for a nice long time, for the bulk of a day, even with continuous use, and turn that basically into a dedicated ABC Mouse and the language program is called LAMP, L-A-M-P, a dedicated platform for that for him. Lock him into guided access mode so he can't get out of those apps when he's using them. Let him use that to sort of learn and such, as he did so much with ABC Mouse on some old Android tablets that just constantly died back in the day. So the result is I'm now recording on a different iPad than I have been before. And still kind of getting used to it. I'm assuming that the aspect ratio and the high definition level as 720 versus 1080 and so on will actually be what I'm hoping for, what I expect with this. I think the camera is pretty much the same on this one, but we'll see. I can already tell that it picks up audio better than the one that I was using, so that's good. Hopefully I won't have to boost up my audio quite so much when editing these episodes here. But just kind of getting used to it a little bit, so if it seems a little funky or a little different here this episode, it's because I'm still kind of playing around with it, but within the next few recordings, I should have everything pinned down very well. What's really cool, and that I didn't know that it could do, and it's kind of odd, is you can pull back on this one. Like, this is sort of the standard look that it was always on the old camera, on the old iPad's front camera, so I can see myself and know what's going on. And you could tap it, and it would sort of zoom in a little bit, but it was changing the aspect ratio, is kind of how it was zooming in, I guess. But it was zooming in a little bit. Like, this was as far back as you could get. So all you would see is this, right? I got this nice way of setting it up. I got the shelves, I got the curtains that go over it whenever I'm not recording, so my son can't get into stuff. I push the curtains all the way over to the side. Sometimes you can barely see the edges of them on either side. I set it up so that you can basically see up to the top of the shelf up here, or pretty close to it, instead of all the stuff that is up on top. And yeah, you still have to see the playpen, the unraveled playpen, and the tub full of kid stuff behind me that's there to also protect the lower levels from him getting into it. But, you know, it works well enough. Well, it turns out that this one has, like, a further out view that I didn't realize you could do, and when I first set it up to record it, I was like, holy shit, that looks horrible! People can see how the room really looks! So I thought I would share that here with you. So I'm going to pull this out and show you kind of what it actually looks like if you were to take this snapshot here that usually looks okay, and zoomed out to just see how completely disorganized this space usually actually is when the curtains are open. So yeah, let's zoom out. Yes, this is the other view that the iPad can do. I don't know. So you guys usually see this part, right? It is just a curtain on a curtain rod scooted off to the sides. Up top, that's going to be some figures in packaging, like my son's namesake, Cade Skywalker, the original Kyle Katarn figure, a couple of my comic packs from when I wrote for Star Wars Tales and got the comic pack made from it. Some of the lightsabers that have home video stuff in it. All those deluxe edition books up there, like Jedi Path, which really I ought to sell or something, because they're just sitting up there wasting space. And some posters, including some signed Joe Coroni art back there that you can't even see because of all the boxes in front of it. Let's see, over here, one of the deco lights. My entire office has a bunch of deco lights in it that aren't usually ever lit up. The batteries are taken out just to decorate the walls. So we got the Kylo Ren deco light. We got a picture of my son from like the day he was born, a signed cast picture of Clone Wars up there. This here is a Buffalo Bison Star Wars Night jersey. I used to do the voice of Palpatine often for the Buffalo Bison Star Wars Night thing because it was just an audio recording to play over the video and the live stuff. I'm nowhere near Buffalo, New York. Let's see, work stuff over here with my Cherry Coke. I typically have my MacBook here in front of me. A couple of tubs of stuff here. That's kid stuff on the top. Miscellaneous Star Wars stuff that needs to be stored somewhere on the bottom. Those are basically being used to hold up the playpen and keep it pushed back. That is unraveled back here to keep my son from getting into stuff. Over there you can see a foam board. Basically, the two side shelves have those project boards folded out like that, also up against some kind of container to keep my son from being able to get into most of that stuff. And then you got your window over here. On top of that, some more of those home video stuff. That's actually a home video shelf right there primarily, except the bottom of it that has books on it, Star Wars books on it. So yes, the zoomed out view of the office with the two large black shelves over here, one of which you can't see, but you can see the side one here now, and then the little half-length 4 brown towers over here. That's the way this is all set up. And yeah, it looks a little weird. It's kind of an odd view zoomed out like this, but this is what my office typically looks like. You're just zoomed in so that you don't see all the stuff on the sides that's distracting or doesn't look all that great. And you're able to just kind of focus in on me talking, which doesn't look all that great, and the playpen thing and the shelves behind me, which makes it look a little bit better. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that. A little bit weird. Little weird to be able to zoom out like this, but all right, let's jump back in. And we're back to not looking quite so crappy, basically. So for those of you who are interested in the updates, that is all there is to it. There's no updates on anything relating to writing or anything like that. Just Patreon and YouTube, and it's just been a few things for each this month. I expect it may be the same going into next month. I also need to actually do the research for some of these other like Star Wars parodies and whatnot before I can record for those, so those may be a little bit further out. My hope actually is that my next focused recordings will be when my son is asleep at night to knock out the other 6 of those Clone Wars commentaries. But that's kind of on the agenda so I can start working on preparing for commentaries for the episodes of Star Wars Visions Season 1. That is the plan, at least. So if you're just interested in that, you don't care about the what are you playing, what are you whatever, then thank you very much for your interest, and I will catch you in a month. For those who are interested in the what are yous, let's see. So, what are you watching? And for someone who asked that recently, I think it was David Noche asked that recently, that is my horrible parody of the voice of the merchant from Resident Evil 4, which, by the way, is in VR now on Oculus Quest 2 and is amazing, or Meta Quest 2 and is amazing. Although Mercenaries is really, really hard in VR. Although the other modes are great. Mercenaries is a bitch in VR. Let's see. So what are you watching? So we've just started watching She-Hulk Attorney at Law, of course. You keep up with all the Marvel stuff. Let's see. We finished up watching Orville New Horizons, which is Orville Season 3 on Hulu together. And then I personally have just finally got caught up on, I watched all of Katie Sackhoff's Another Life series. Thank goodness. With it not getting a Season 3, it actually does have an ending to Season 2 that ends the series, which is terrific. And I just started watching The Morning Show on Apple TV+. Although I thought, I was wrong. I thought The Morning Show was an Aaron Sorkin series. I thought it was like Sports Night, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, The Newsroom, The Morning Show. Of course, it's another Aaron Sorkin thing, sort of deconstructing a genre of television. But it's not. It's actually based on, I guess, a book by Brian Stelter of CNN. So, you know, I'm enjoying it so far, but it wasn't what I expected. I expected like that witty, snappy, you know, Aaron Sorkin dialogue, and turns out it has nothing to do with Aaron Sorkin at all. Oops. Let's see. What are you reading? Not a whole lot right now. I just finished up Kagan the Damned, which actually, God, that's a slow burn book at the beginning. Holy crap, it is slow burn. But a really interesting book. I don't want to give anything away about its world because the world building is very interesting. But suffice to say, I am going to continue reading that series, so that's good. Boy, it was a slow burn at the beginning. I'm trying to get into some of the Star Wars books I've been neglecting, like Queen's whatever the most recent Padme book is, and stuff like that, to try to knock that out, but I haven't had a chance to really read much. I've been focusing more as going to sleep on like Morning Show and Another Life and stuff like that to catch up on viewing. Let's see. Then, let's see, so I was reading, watching, what are you playing? This one's going to be the big one, because in and out of all this craziness, one of the few things I have had quite a bit of time to do while my son is playing in the room is to set up some stuff, either when he's asleep or when he's playing in the room, to play some solo board game stuff. So video game-wise, I started playing some Slay the Spire. It was free with PS Plus at one point, so I've been playing some Slay the Spire, which is pretty fun, a deck building / turn-based combat / roguelite, etc., type of game. And then I also finally did play all the way through the story of Star Wars Squadrons. I started playing it in VR, stopped, started playing it in VR, stopped, started playing it out of VR when we put away our PSVR stuff because there's just no room for it right now, stopped, and finally said, you know what, I'm going to do this, because I bought a, I've been using the remote play a lot on the PC, and I finally bought that, well, not finally, I finally bought a Backbone, which I'm glad I waited on because I was able to get the PlayStation Backbone. A Backbone is basically like this little controller-looking thing. You pull it apart and stick your phone inside it, and then use remote play, and you can play really well. It streams really nicely there on the remote play app. So I was able to use that to finally get through Star Wars Squadrons, which was okay. I mean, it's nice to see that it fit within canon. It's nice to see Hera in a way that wasn't just regular stylized animation, trying to make it fit with the other characters. It was all right. I think my favorite parts of Battlefront 1 and 2 were the space battles. And I would have hoped that Squadrons was going to be like that. The problem for me was that even when you're not playing in VR, the only option for view is from inside the cockpit. And that was never my preferred way of playing anything like that in the previous Battlefront games. So it was kind of like, you locked me into my least favorite view when playing Squadrons. I can understand that for VR, and it works great for VR to have to be in the cockpit, but not so much when you're playing otherwise. I really wish they would have made it a little more arcadey, because it kind of was, by taking the Battlefront approach where you could switch the different views and whatnot. Have not had a chance to get back to Cyberpunk 2077 recently, but I will, eventually, nor Horizon Forbidden West. Both of those are kind of sitting there waiting for me to get back to them at this point, but they're freaking huge games, so I don't imagine that'll be anytime super soon. Board game-wise, solo board game-wise, quite a few. Let's see. I was able to acquire and play a solo game, which actually is built into the game, of the original Dark Tower from 1981, which is awesome. I love Return to Dark Tower, so I finally found a complete working copy of the original, which is really difficult to do. Let's see. Star Wars Dark Side Rising, which is like a reskin of Thanos Rising and Death Eaters Rising and Batman Who Laughs Rising, which is only available outside the US. You have to import it like through Amazon UK or something. Star Wars Villainous, with those horrible, horrible, horrible looking movers that look like the plastic was sneezed into before it hardened. But I've been playing the solitaire variant known as the Quarantine variant that you can find on Board Game Geek to play Villainous myself. Got through the tutorials, but never started the first chapter of Bard Sung. Playing some Imperium Classics and Imperium Legends. What else? And I think the only other one that stands out that I'm remembering right now is that I have finally gotten back into role-player adventures. After months of being away from it, jumped back into that. Just tackled Mission 3, ready to move on to either the side quest or Mission 4, probably the side quest first. So lots of board gamey type stuff. I actually think what I'm going to do is finish up role-player adventures and then shift over to Bard Sung. If not, go ahead and go back into Tainted Grail with some serious house rules in place from the beginning to minimize the grind and let me see and experience the story of the 3 freaking campaigns rather than constantly banging my head against the wall for the grind of that game. But, yes. And then, what are you backing? Not backing anything right this second. I did back the Return to Dark Tower second printing / expansion to get the Covenant expansion that was recently on BackerKit rather than Kickstarter. And on Kickstarter recently did Star Realms Rise of Empire And I forget the name of the game. It's like a little fishing game from Button Shy. It's one of their little wallet-size games from their solo series. But they had a bundle that was like all of their solo games or several of their solo games in a single package that you could get for relatively cheap for like a discount by putting them all together. So I backed that. My main thing now is waiting for stuff that I have back to come in. There's several things that are going to be shipping soon. ISS Vanguard Wave 1 soon. Sheol will be coming soon. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers, waiting for all those Call to Adventure Epic Origins and so on and so on and so on. So my Kickstarter list grows and grows and grows, but then thankfully you'll run into certain times of year where it's just like boom, 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 and stuff just starts arriving like crazy. So we're hopefully in the arrival phase for several things in the very near future. But nothing that I'm backing currently at this point. I think that's all the watches, right? Playing, watching, reading, backing. So I think that'll do it for us, folks. Thank you for watching, as always. Hope you enjoyed that weird little zooming out type thing we did here. But I will catch you in a month. Have a good one. If you are starting school or have just started the school year, have a good school year. For those of you who are students or teachers or parents of students and so on, or people who just... I don't know, somehow are peripherally involved in school. I don't know. But have a good school year for those of you who are at all looking at the beginning of that happening right now. I'm hoping for a good one, and it is starting out well, if busy. But thank you all, and have a good month.